Planning Commission for September 19th, 2024 to order. Can we have a roll call, please?
Here.
Here. Thank you. Can we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic, one nation, under God, indivisible. Can we have a motion for the approval of the agenda? Do we have any changes, Jordan?
Chair, yes, we do. Item A under 4, consent, we would like to remove. The document is not ready for y'all's approval. And then on consent, item B, this case is older, so if y'all would like to pull it off and have staff explain to you why it's about a year late, we're more than willing to do it. A majority of y'all were here when you passed it. It passed a unanimous vote, so it'll be up to y'all. If y'all would like for us to have further discussion on that, we can.
So can we approve it today, or we have to table it?
A, we're just removing completely. B, we need to get approved today. If y'all would like to, if you would like some explanation, yes, we need to remove it from consent. And then it will be the first item under new business.
Okay, thank you.
I'll move to approve the agenda as amended, explained by staff.
Do you have a second? Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Now for new business, approval of the minutes. You know, I didn't get the minutes online, so did anybody read them? Did we get them? Can we have a motion to approve the minutes? I didn't see it. Okay,
I would
think-
recommend just tabling it and we'll bring it back at the next meeting.
Okay, move to table. Can we have a second? Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Yeah, the consent B. Yeah, they had a wrong year. It's been a year. It's case number from 2023. So they gonna table that. So now we go on to new business.
No consent.
For the consent, I thought we took care of that already. Yes, Jordan, the consent.
Under new business, item B from consent will be the first item on the agenda. So that will be the one that we're at right now.
Okay,
And then John Lovato will give y'all a background on it.
okay. So can we have a motion for the approved case number 235130 on the consent agenda?
Move to approve pending explanation.
Second, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Let's
What, not yet?
explain.
We'll
explain it first,
then you call for the vote.
Hey, Jordan.
Mr. Chair, Commission members, item B, case number 235130, Dominion variance. The applicant requested 25% of the building footprint to exceed 30 feet in height to accommodate the number of units and also to allow more than 12 units in each structure. It was approved unanimously. The case manager was Manuel Olivas, and he was no longer with Santa Fe County. The actual order got lost in the shuffle, and therefore that is why we're bringing this before you.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, may I ask the staff? So So staff, this, if I remember correctly, this was near Fireplace Lane and I-25 in the, got it. Thank you very much. Got it.
Correct.
So now can we have a motion to approve?
We've got it.
Second? Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Now we go on to new business. Case number 245070, Via de San Isidro. Maggie Valdez.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, Planning Commission. My name is Maggie Valdez. I'm a Development Review Specialist Senior. Today I come before you with case number 245070. Villas de San Isidro, LLC Multifamily Conditional Use Permit. Villas de San Isidro, LLC applicant Jenkins and Gavin, agent, are requesting a CUP to allow 23 multifamily residential dwelling units on a 7.70 acre site. The project proposes to utilize city water and wastewater. The site will take access via Rufina Street. The property is zoned traditional community within the village of Agua Fria Community District Overlay. Table 9-12-3 VAFCD TC dimensional standards illustrate the density within the VAFCD TC one dwelling per 0.75 acres and may be increased to one dwelling unit per 0.33 acres if the lots are served by public water or sewer. The site is located at 3933 Rufina Street, Commission District 2, SDA 2. The applicant states the vacant 7.70 acre subject property is located at 3933 Rufina in the village of Agua Fria and zoned traditional community. The proposed project is a 23-unit multifamily rental community comprised of detached single-family dwellings, which requires a CUP. Access to the property will be via Rufina Street. The project is being served by City of Santa Fe Water and Sewer, thus allowing one dwelling unit per 0.33 acres. In response to the CUP criteria, the applicant states the following. The applicant has addressed the CUP criteria and staff has responded to the applicant's comments. Applicable SLDC design standards. The applicant has addressed the applicable design standards as required by the SLDCs. Sorry. Building and Development Services staff has reviewed this project for compliance with the pertinent SLDC requirements and has found that the facts presented support the request for a conditional use permit to allow 23 multifamily residential dwelling units on a 7.70 acre site. The use is compatible with the current development within the affected zoning district. The use will not impact adjacent land uses, and the application satisfies the submittal requirements set forth in the SLDC, inclusive of the conditional use criteria set forth in chapter, I didn't put the chapter, I apologize, section 4. The review comments from the State Historic Preservation Office and county staff have established findings that this application to allow 23 multifamily residential dwelling units is in compliance with state requirements, standards identified in SLDC section 9-12-3 and required design standards set forth in chapter 7, SLDCs. Hearing officer meeting. On the August 8, 2024 hearing officers hearing, 3 individuals testified in opposition of the request for a 23 multifamily residential dwelling. The individuals have concerns on increased traffic and drainage and height of proposed dwellings. The testimony of these individuals stated in the minutes recorded on August 29, 2024 with the Santa Fe County Clerk's Office. Hearing officer's recommendation. On August 8, 2024, This request was presented to the Sustainable Land Development Hearing Officer. The hearing officer memorialized findings of fact and conclusion of law in a recommended order on this request. The hearing officer, based on the evidence presented, recommends that this application be granted subject to the conditions required by staff. Recommendation. Staff recommends approval of a conditional use permit to allow 23 multifamily residential dwelling units on 7.7 acre sites subject to the following conditions. If Planning Commission recommends approval of this conditional use permit, staff recommends the following conditions. Mr. Chair and Commission, may I enter the condition into the record?
Yes, you may.
The CUP showing the site layout and any other conditions that may be imposed through the approval process shall be recorded at the expense of the applicants in the Office of the County Clerk, accordance with Chapter 4, Section 4.9.6.8. The approval of the CUP will allow for 23 multifamily residential units to rent on a 7.70 acre site as illustrated on the drawing that was submitted to staff. The application shall obtain a Santa Fe County business license before rental of any of the units. The applicant will need to follow the sustainable design standards and code requirements found in Chapter 7. The applicant shall obtain a development permit with county and building permits from CID before any work is started. The applicant shall obtain a right-of-way permit from the City of Santa Fe before working on the right-of-way for utility connections. This report and the exhibits listed below are hereby submitted as part of the hearing record. Mr. Chair, Commission, I stand for questions.
Thank you. Do we have any questions of staff? Eric?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Maggie, I wonder if you could direct me to the exhibit that best represents the site plan. To me, the site plan shows a surveyed property, but when I try and blow it up to see what's going on, it loses resolution. I can't really see.
So that was the same problem we had with the hearing officer, and I think Ms. Jenkins provided a really good
So maybe when
site on there. Yes, Ms. Jenkins provided a really good one the
that
last time
sounds
for the
great.
hearing
We'll wait
officer.
until the
Yes.
applicant presents. Thanks. Oh, we could see it. Click this, ¿cómo se llama?
Do you have any, Carl?
We can wait for the applicant's presentation if that's
Okay.
included. That's fine.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Valdez, I'm trying to figure out what I'm missing here. If I understand this correctly, that it's a traditional area and it's one dwelling per 0.75 acre, but under the Village of Agua Fria Community District overlay, if they do use city public water or sewer, they can have a density of 0.33. And so, as you know, doing the math of the acres and the units, they're above that. So why does it require a conditional use permit? As I look at even the conditions here, the conditions would be such that you'd have to do these no matter what, even if you're just doing a single-family dwelling there.
Chair, Commissioners, it's because the way the lot is set up, it's not individual lots, it's one big lot with all the structures on it. It's kind of like it's like a gray area in our code. We're running as multifamily, but it kind of falls under a condo type situation. And so it's the way that the code is written. That's one of the things that has to be reworked when we rewrite the code is we don't account for these, and these projects are actually becoming more frequent. And so you actually will see more of these in the near future.
Okay, yeah, I can see where it's the multi-homes on one lot, so now I understand that. Okay. Okay, thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Ruben?
I had a question. Since you say that it's zoned traditional community, did you have access to any kind of architectural renderings? Because I've been seeing a lot of very modern-looking stuff popping up everywhere. And what exactly would you anticipate going into this site?
So when I went out there, you're asking me what I visualized when I went out to the project?
I guess I'm asking if the developer has come up with something that we could have looked at, or if it's something that comes post.
So Ms. Jenkins is going to provide that for you now on her presentation.
Oh,
You'll be
okay.
able to get a vision, you'll vision what that's going to be on the property.
Okay, that's fine, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes, Carl?
One more question. Ms. Valdez, as far as the area that they're in Agua Fria, there's nothing in the Sustainable Land Development Code or in this density that's something rental versus ownership. There's nothing like that. Is that correct?
So I'm going to let Ms. Jenkins answer that because I think right now they're going to be renting out the homes, is what I'm understanding right now. They're not selling them at this time. They're being rentals.
Okay, that's fine. I'm just wondering if there's not anything that's in code that requires that they do one or the other in this type of multifamily.
No,
Mr.
I
Chair,
didn't
Commission
hear
Member
that.
Trujillo, to clarify, there's nothing in our ordinance for that.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Valdez.
Any other questions of staff? I have none. I have questions for the applicant. Is the applicant here? Please step forward and get sworn in.
I do. Jennifer Jenkins, 130 Grant Avenue. Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair Gonzalez, Commissioners. I'm Jennifer Jenkins with Jenkins Gavin, here on behalf of the applicant for the Villas de San Isidro project. And I do have a presentation that I think will probably address a lot of your questions. And I'm assuming, can you guys have it on your screen?
Yeah, push.
Okay, great. Okay.
Which one?
Is it not on? Let me see. Should be on, but it's not advancing. Oh, there we go. Let's go back one. Okay, so as I mentioned, I'm here on behalf of the applicant, Villas de San Isidro LLC, which is local family, Doug and Anna Ottersberg. I'm with Jenkins Gavin, and we have civil engineering services provided by Tierra West, and our civil engineering consultant, Ron Bohannon, is here in case you have any questions for him. So this is the subject parcel. We are located north of Rufina Street. We're just west of the Zaffarano roundabout at Zaffarano and Rufina, right there. And so we're just a little bit west and just west of Camino Polvoso. And we are located within the traditional community of Agua Fria Village, and which everything pretty much north of Rufina Street in this area is also in Agua Fria Village. The site is undeveloped, and to our knowledge, it has never been developed in the past. So we are in the traditional community. So this is the zoning map. So you can see everything there in orange is also traditional community, and everything you see in gray is in the city of Santa Fe and under the city's jurisdiction. So just zooming in, you can see that we have great access to city water and sewer infrastructure. We have already received approval from the city to serve the project with water and sewer. We'll be making those connections in Rufina Street. So the blue lines that you see are the water lines, and the green lines are the sewer lines. So we have great access to that public infrastructure. So this is our site plan, and so I'm zoomed out, and I'm going to zoom in a moment, but it just kind of shows the context. Our access here is directly off of Rufina, and we have a central roadway here, and then the northern, it's almost the northern half of the property is going to be dedicated as open space for this community. So I've flipped the site plan, so now north is to the left to the page and Rufina Street is to the right, because it makes it a little easier to zoom in because of the shape of the property. And so here's our access point here. And so what these, so as Maggie said, this is a considered multifamily community because we have multiple dwellings on one parcel of land. And so what those little gray boxes represent would kind of be the buildable area for each of those dwellings. And then the little boxes are the concrete drive pads for the parking areas. For each house would have 2 parking areas right in front. And then you have a trail network here that leads into the open space to the north. And we have an emergency turnaround here for emergency vehicles. We have some guest parking shown here, and we also have some guest parking shown here. And then these two landscaped areas are part of our stormwater management. So the site slopes pretty much from east to west, and then kind of heads to the southeast portion of the property. That's the natural terrain. So we are collecting our stormwater in these landscaped swaled areas here, as well as along the frontage. And we're also proposing other landscaping improvements along Rufina Street just to create a really beautiful entrance for the community. The Ottersbergs, their intent here is to create rental homes. So this type of project is commonly referred to as a built-to-rent. So when we think about rental projects, we often think about apartment communities, right? That's when you think of multifamily, that's what most people think of, which is very reasonable. But what we're seeing now more and more is there are people who prefer to rent, but maybe they don't want to live in an apartment building. They would prefer to live in a home. And in being out in the market looking for individual homes to rent in existing neighborhoods can be challenging. And so this type of community where there's individual dwellings, those dwellings are rented, and then there's management, and there can be common amenities like a trail system and open space, and the management takes care of the property and takes care of everything, just like it would if it was an apartment complex. But the goal here is to provide really quality workforce housing for our community. So this shows the open space area to the north, and we have a little gazebo shade structure here and some additional plantings and a nice little pathway. So it's a great place to, throw a Frisbee with the kids, walk the dog, and we are gonna have some doggy stations out here as well. And so it really creates a nice sense of just open space for the residents. So these are just the details. The site is 7.7 acres. Because of the water and sewer connections, we're entitled to basically a density of 3 dwellings per acre. That's how we arrived at the 23 dwellings. And as Jordan mentioned, because it's a multifamily community, the SLDC does require a conditional use permit for that type of development. So although there is no open space required per the SLDC for this type of project, almost half the site is being dedicated as open space. So I just wanted to kind of zoom in on the topography a little bit. So each of these contours shows how the property slopes down to kind of to this area over here, as I mentioned previously. So there was concern expressed at the last hearing about would this property have any drainage impacts on any of our neighbors with respect to how stormwater is handled. So we are downstream from the Camino Povoso community. So they are higher than us. So their water flows to us, not the other way around. And one of the great things about when property does get developed is that you have to manage your stormwater. Your water you just can't send all of your water off-site. So if there were any, drainage issues for any of these parcels downstream of us, by the improvements we're installing, it's all mitigated because it's not just a free sheet flow off of the property. But like I said, so we are downstream from the Camino Povoso, so none of our stormwater, because gravity, none of our stormwater will move in that easterly direction. All of our stormwater moves to the west. And you can see this is our terrain management plan. So all of our water from the improvements here flows to the street. And then everything is directed to our 2 drainage and collection areas here at the south end of the site from moving through the drainage swales on either side of the roadway. So that completes my presentation, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Do we have any questions of Ms. Jenkins? Ruben?
I guess I have the same one I had for staff, was What are they going to look like?
Oh, yes, thank you. I forgot to address that, sir. Thank you very much. So Chair Gonzalez and Commissioners, so the plan is for these to be manufactured homes and prefabricated homes that will be set on a permanent foundation. So the owner of the property is going to acquire and set brand-new, very high-quality manufactured homes on the site. And again, they will be on permanent foundations, and then those homes will be rented to members of the community, families in the community. And the goal is, and hopefully in maybe in 10 years' time, that we create an opportunity for those residents to buy their homes. So that is kind of the longer-term kind of vision for the project. But to start out, it would be a rental project, and then and Mr. and Mrs. Ottersberg are really excited about the possibility of creating home ownership opportunities in the future.
And what will be the range of the rents? Do you have any idea?
You know, we really don't, but we're, like I said, we're looking to create things that are going to be definitely moderately priced relative to the market. And these are going to be generously, we want to do a variety of home sizes. So we're going to have some 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom, and even some 4-bedroom larger homes for families. And so these, you know, until these homes are set in place and come to market, we don't really have a final number, but I would say that these, in comparison to other single-family homes that are being rented, these are going to be very moderate.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to follow up a little bit on Ruben's question on the stylistically. So
Yes.
this is, you said these are going to be build to rent, and so these are all intended to, the manufactured homes are intended to be acquired at the same time
Yes,
in a similar style.
exactly.
And how does that style compare to the adjacent development? Is it, you know, I'm just trying to understand.
This is going to be fairly traditional. This is going to be traditional, you know, pitched roof homes that you would see. These are going to be brand-new models, so they're going to be, you know, but we're not looking to do anything that has a real contemporary feel or anything of that nature. So these are going to be traditional that would align with some of the other, you know, manufactured
Pitched roof,
homes.
burst homes, that kind of thing.
Absolutely,
Got it.
all of that, yes.
Another question I have is about the drainage. I'm familiar with the county requirements for each structure having some kind of drainage / retention. So if I look at, and it's this diagram that's here, so I assume the road is paved?
Yes, the road is going to be a base course roadway.
Base course.
It's going to be
okay.
base course, and then there'll be drainage swales on either side. So what we're doing here, Mr. Abo, is that we are doing centralized drainage improvements. So none of these, these ponds are sized to accommodate the stormwater coming off of every roof and every driveway.
So it kind of sheets on into the bar ditches.
And then heads
goes
straight down
each
to
of
those,
Great.
exactly. So the individual residents aren't going to be responsible for managing their stormwater on site.
Another question I have, so, and that's just a hammerhead, there's no access, the little jog, that's a fire hammerhead on the,
Yeah, exactly. So there's
Riverside.
really, we do have a little driveway right here, so this resident right here would park
we
back
don't see
here.
your laser, but.
But yeah, so you could see that little stub out at the top,
Right.
top of the hammer, that's their driveway. So
Got it.
that little piece of road will get utilized, but it's just would be to access that person's driveway.
Okay. The other question I have, and I don't know if you want to change slides, is about the open space.
Sure, let me just go right to it. Yeah.
Is the open space is only this community, these 23 homes, will they be the only ones who have access to this open space, or will this be open space?
Technically, it's private property, it's private open space. You can see we have pedestrian access, you know, coming right from the top of the roadway
Right.
to allow for that. Is it our intention to come in here and put up a 8-foot wall in order to do that? It is really not. So I think if there were neighbors who were walking their dog over here, as long as everybody's behaving themselves, I would not expect that to be an issue.
Got it. So there's going to be no surrounding fence
There
necessarily?
will, for the residents, because we want the opportunity for everybody to have a backyard area for pets and children. So But we're still working through some of those details, but, you know, fencing 8 acres is expensive. So we're just being strategic about
So you
how we
may-
do.
So you may be fencing the homes, but not necessarily
the open space, correct.
That's something you
Yeah.
yet to work out. That,
Yeah.
it might help to, you know, include the community if you were to,
Yeah. And one of
not
the things,
necessarily lock that out.
it kind of helps, as you can see here. So these are all backyards over here.
Yeah.
So that's already fenced. I think most of those residents probably have a fenced yard. So that's already done. But yeah, it is, unless we run into any kind of issues of, we would be concerned about any motorized vehicles or ATVs making their way in there. So as long as we aren't running into issues, I think we'd leave it open. But if we are running into issues, then fencing would probably be the alternative.
Thank you very much.
Carl?
Hello, thank you,
Go ahead,
Mr.
Carl.
Chairman. Ms. Jenkins, so back to the style of the home, and I realize that we can't hold you accountable for it, but if they're modular homes, chances are they're not stuccoed, right? They're gonna be sided.
Yeah, they would have siding, yes.
Okay. And so, in looking at the site plan here, it appears that you've drawn out a little box for a parking space, is that correct?
Yeah, that is going to be basically a 20-foot wide concrete pad. So
Okay.
it'll be a 20-foot by 20-foot, so it'll accommodate 2 vehicles.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, let me just go back to that. There we go. That shows it a little better. So yeah, we want to accommodate parking for 2 vehicles in front of every residence. And then we do have extra kind of off-street parking. We have some parking here, as you come in on the left by the drainage pond, and then at the top, we have some parking as well.
Okay. So, Mr. Chairman, Ms. Jenkins, on the drainage, I mean, the drainage ponds, unless it's redirected to those ponds, either through some sort of catch basins, it's just gonna be whatever water flows from the roads, is that correct? There's no
Yeah.
catch basins put under, like gutters or anything along
No,
those lines?
yeah, so these ponds, like I mentioned, they are sized to accommodate the water coming off the roofs of the homes and the water coming off the driveway. So all impervious area in the community will be accommodated in these ponds. It's been sized to do that. So because there's really not, like I said, we don't want to, you know, have a bunch of little decentralized, you know, catchment areas. It's just not efficient in terms of maintenance. And then we have an opportunity to passively irrigate a bunch of landscaping in these ponding areas. So it's really going to be beautiful when it all comes in.
Okay. Yeah, I have my doubts that all the rainwater from the roofs will make it to that pond, but we're in New Mexico and we're pretty dry, so I'm not
We will.
too
We'll
worried
get it
about
over there.
but, And so, Mr. Chairman and Ms. Jenkins, what is the approximate square footage of each one of these homes?
Yeah, as I mentioned, we want to do a variety of sizes because we really want to serve, you know, a variety of family types and individuals. So probably ranging from 2 bedrooms. The 2 bedrooms probably could be, you know, around 1,000 square feet. Then you get up into a 3-bedroom that's going to be closer to 1,500 square feet. And then the 4 bedrooms, those things are big. Those are like 3,000, 3,200 square feet. So they're really generous.
Okay. And Mr. Chairman and Ms. Jenkins, this neighborhood will be served by natural gas or just electric? Okay.
Yep, natural gas and, of course, power, and then, you know, the city water and city sewer. Yes.
So, Mr. Chairman, Ms. Jenkins, all that infrastructure will be run at the time that the road's being cut? It'll be in there for these people, or they would have to pay for it later?
All of that has to be done before the county is going to issue us any permits to do the foundations for the homes.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
So the infrastructure has
you.
to come first.
Any other questions? Yes, Wendy?
You know, depending on their depth, I think the front one has to be fenced, but the smaller one over here, it's not deep enough, so we won't have to. But there are some code requirements relative to that for safety purposes. Yeah.
Thank you. I've got some questions. You know, I'm kind of concerned about the density of 23 homes on like almost a little more than half the lot, like 3.5 acres or 4 acres. You know, could you make those lots a little larger? And it seems that you pushed it to the limit of what you're allowed, 23 homes on 7.7 acres, 0.33, acres per house. Is there a reason you had to do that?
Well, we are interested in developing the property in accordance with what we're permitted to do under the code. And when you're extending water mains, sewer mains, these things are expensive. You're building drainage improvements, you're building open space. All of this stuff is incredibly costly. So every dwelling you don't build makes the project more expensive for the end user. So with our intent here is to create moderately priced workforce housing. That is what this community desperately needs. And we wish we were building twice this many, frankly, because we are right in town. We have access to transit, access to employment, access to services. And the SLDC encourages clustering homes together as opposed to spreading them out, because what do we get? We get open space. We get open space. So if you look, for example, at our neighbors to the east on Camino Povoso, their density is about 2 per acre. Our density is about 3 per acre. They have 0 open space. None. There's no amenity. There's no place to go walk your dog except down the road. And then if you look at our neighbors to the west on Camino Vista Aurora, 8 dwellings per acre. But they have a tiny little park right here. They've got an amenity. So it's really about, the code is really, and the Sustainable Growth Management Plan as well as the SLDC are encouraging clustering. The old pattern of spreading out 2.5 acre lots as far as the eye can see, it's not a sustainable way to develop. So we want to be efficient with our infrastructure, because the more we spread these houses out, the longer my water line gets, the longer my sewer line gets, the longer my trenches get. I have more road to build and more water coming off the road. So we're trying to be appropriate so everybody has space around them. So we're not doing a subdivision, right? We are setting homes, but we have laid this out as if each of these homes was on a lot that's 50 feet wide. A 50-foot lot is the minimum requirement in the traditional community. You have to have at least 50 feet of frontage on the road. That's what this is. So if this was a subdivision, which it's not, but if it was, it would be fully compliant.
Thank you. The open space, it's way at the north end of the property. It
Correct.
looks, there's 3.5 acres there, or 47% of the 7.7 acres at the north end of the property.
Yes.
Is there a way you could have put some open space within the central part of the development?
So that kind of goes back to the efficiency with the infrastructure. Because, for example, if we pushed half the homes to the north end and half the homes to the south end and put the open space in the middle, which maybe that would be lovely, but that means we are building almost twice as much road. Our utility lines are twice as long. And we also have issues with, you can't, like your water line, you can't have a dead-end water line that long. Because if your water line gets too long, you've got to loop it all the way back to Rufina Street, and now you're building twice as much water line.
I thought you were going to loop the water lines anyway. I read in the plans where there was going to be a
Yeah,
loop.
we actually worked through that with the city's water division. Originally, we thought we were going to have to loop it, but as they modeled and the water pressure, it turned out we didn't have to. So that was a really wonderful cost savings, because we were prepared to do that from an engineering standpoint if it was going to be required. But when they modeled it, they turned out that it wasn't going to be necessary. So we were pleased about that.
And the developer, are these already in the stages where it's going to be developed, or when there's going to be some groundbreaking?
Yeah, I think we probably are looking, he's pulling his financing together, and of course, we need to get our development permit from growth management. So we'd probably start doing the infrastructure right after the first of the year is what I would expect.
Well, you have good explanations for everything to justify your position. But I think that I have a little disagreement with that. I think the lot should be a little larger and the open space a little smaller. And the other thing is that this looks to me, from the explanation, this looks to me like a mobile home park.
No,
You
sir.
know, it looks that way. You said mobile homes are going to be placed on the
Yes.
lot.
So a mobile home park, that kind of business model is where I own my manufactured home, I'm going to rent a space from this mobile home park. I own my home and I'm going to set it there and I'm just renting the space, right? This is not that. These homes are going to be fully complete on permanent foundations, brand new. Families are going to be able to come rent that completed product. And hopefully, in the future, if they want to, they'll be able to buy it. And that's the plan.
Now, when you build these, the developer, when it's fully rented, who's going to be the collecting fees to do the maintenance on the
No,
common areas?
they will have on-site management. Probably one of the homes will be occupied by an on-site manager. And so they will be responsible for all the maintenance of the roadway and the open space and all of that. And they will be there to, address any issues with the residents, just like you would with an apartment community. There's an office where you can go and there's a manager. And so all of that will be done on site.
And the dues for the maintenance are going to come out of the rent?
There's no dues. It just comes out of the rent. Yep.
And at some point, these are going to be rentals.
Correct.
And at what point are they going to be like condos and be sold?
So it would be at least 10 years from now, but that is sort of the plan. And we're hoping that we might be able to subdivide it in 10 years because we've laid it out. So if we did want to subdivide and put each home on its own lot, that all the dimensions are compliant with the subdivision regulations. So in 10 years, you may see us back in front of the BCC asking to subdivide this project so then we can make some homeownership possible for the residents.
Because this is the first thing I've ever heard of building homes as a rental.
Yeah.
Most of them come in with a subdivision.
Exactly.
They subdivide, and this is a very novel idea. I haven't heard of it before.
It's great.
Maybe you have worked on these projects
Yeah,
before.
we have one that's about to break ground in the city, but you see these in other communities. You're seeing a lot more of them. Sometimes they're different kind of models. Sometimes you'll see them where they'll do duplexes and everything's a duplex, for example, or whatever. Sometimes they're little two-story lofts, or there's a lot of different ways to do it. But just doing kind of a detached dwelling that somebody can rent, it's proven to be very desirable.
Thank you. Do we have any more questions of Carl?
Mr. Chairman and Ms. Jenkins, did you guys, maybe this was a finance thing or money thing, did you guys ever look at putting stick-built homes versus?
Yeah, we looked.
Yeah, it was cost prohibited?
Completely cost prohibitive. I mean, the construction costs are just outrageous right now.
Okay, because, most families over the American dream, when you own real estate, you own a home, it'll appreciate over time and
Sure.
you develop wealth that way.
Yeah.
Typically with modular or mobile homes, that's not the case. In 10 years, that home might not be as worth, might not appreciate
Yeah.
very much, and so.
Yeah, if this was to be stick-built, it would be a much different financial picture. There would be nothing moderately priced about any of it.
Okay.
That's the challenge.
And it's sad for all the younger people and
Yeah.
everybody else. It is sad. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any more questions of Eric?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ms. Jenkins, so in looking at this diagram, if I were to be the renter of lot number 10, whichever one that is, the gray box indicates the lot minus some easement, or is that to indicate the home footprint?
It is
Yeah, there you
not,
go.
it is not the home footprint, because
Great.
these footprints are really big.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it is not the home footprint. It's really intended to kind of identify the zone, if you will, that is dedicated to
Build
that
within
particular
this,
dwelling.
not next to, not in the white space, so
Yeah.
that in the future it may be subdivided. Is that it?
Exactly. And
Great.
so within that gray box, you could have a home, you could have a porch, you have a backyard, maybe a little front yard. So all of that would be contained within that the gray box.
You can go back to the previous
Sure.
slide. Yeah, because in looking at the adjacent on Camino Polvoso, those manufactured homes would be a more typical size of what you would see on this. Got it. Just trying to
Yeah, yeah,
turn that image into reality. Thank you.
yeah, thank you.
Carl?
Mr. Chairman, Ms. Jenkins, I have one other question. So if there's intent to sell these, at some time in the future, there would have to be a deeded piece of property. There would have to be a property line.
Absolutely.
So how is that going to work
So
out?
the idea, like I said, this is an idea, because we're looking at, Mr. Ottersberg wants to retire someday, right? And he's like, so what's my exit strategy? And the exit strategy that is most appealing to him would be to take this property, do an actual subdivision plat, and we actually survey it out, and we're going to create individual lots for each of the dwellings. And then we bring that through the county process, we go to the BCC, and then what we don't have a multifamily project anymore. Now we have a proper subdivision, right? We have a proper subdivision, and we have homes on individual lots, and then we can make those homes available for the residents to purchase them.
And Mr. Chairman and staff, is that, they come back later to subdivide it into individual plots? Is that going to pass this LDC code? How does that work?
Chair, Commissioners, that's too much of a hypothetical question to answer. The code is a living, breathing document, so in all reality, the answer could be yes, the answer could be no. It's just going to depend on the time frame that they do it and what the code is stating at the time.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Ms. Jenkins.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions? If not, thank you, Ms. Jenkins. If not, this is a public hearing. Those wishing to speak for or against this case, please raise your hand and step forward. Step forward and get sworn in.
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Chair, County Commissioners, I am Patricio Martinez. I live at 2152 Camino Polvoso. It's just east of this property here and adjacent to Rafina. Okay. I have, what I'm going to talk to you about is the lot size, okay? What I'm going to talk about is the lot size. The project owners are asking to use a 33 maximum density of acres per dwelling unit for the 7.7 acres that they own. And this is according to the county standard, dimensional standards at VAFC DTC. But according to the proposal, they're only using 4.1 acres of the 7.7 acres to put the 23 dwellings. And if my math is correct, the project owners are now asking for approval to condense the 0.33 acres per dwelling unit to require approximately 0.178 acres per dwelling unit. And this project should only show 14 to 15 homes in the original required 0.33 acres per square foot. As I see it, they are manipulating the 3.33 maximum density per acre required by table 9.12.3 in order to get their 23 dwellings in that area. These proposed lot sizes are 0.152 acres less than the required 0.33 acres in the table. In addition, with these proposed lot sizes, they could create a possible fire hazard of homes being too close together if a fire breaks out within that area. Also noting, talking in the previous meetings we had with the project owners, they have not said nothing about how much light and noise pollution will be generated by this project? Because right now I can sit in my backyard, look at the stars, listen to some dogs out there, coyotes sometimes. And so I have not heard anything about how much lighting they're going to have in there that'll come into our backyards, or how much noise or noise curfew they're going to have within that area. They also have not mentioned what's going to be done with the wildlife in there. There are a lot of prairie dogs in that area. There's a covey of quail, about 15, that still live in that area. Of course, there's skunks and coyotes that go in and out through that area. And I would like to hear how the applicant plan to address, to relocate the wildlife humanely in this area. And that's all I've got to say.
Yeah, my name's Mike Tweedy. Our address is 2120 Camino Povoso. Nothing's been said about our area back there. She said everybody's got fences. Not everybody's got fences. And when they start doing the excavating, it's going to be all that dirt and dust, and we want some privacy. You know, she's talking about chain link fence or whatever. That's not going to give us privacy from the open area or from the mobile homes. Nothing's been considered about us in Camino Povoso. And just concerns, and there's a lot of people who don't have fences. So I like to have those things addressed too. That's all I've got.
Thank you very much. Anyone else in the audience? If not, Jordan, anybody online?
Chairman, there is nobody who is indicating they wish to speak on this topic.
Okay, I will, if no one else wants to speak, I will close the public hearing and bring it back to the commission. What are the wishes of the commission?
Mr. Chairman, is it possible to bring Ms. Jenkins back for a couple more
Oh,
questions?
yes, it is. Ms. Jenkins, would you please step forward?
Mr. Chairman, Ms. Jenkins, so was it considered to, I get the open space is really great and people can and some will appreciate it. Where did it come in that was required, or was it never required, or it was just a choice that was made by the developer?
It was a choice,
Okay.
Chair Gonzalez and Commissioners. So as I mentioned, there are probably, I can't even count how many references there are in the Sustainable Growth Management Plan, as well as the SLDC, about clustering homes. That is the direction. It is about not developing every square inch of land. Let's preserve land and a sense of openness where we can. And so, yes, are we trying to be efficient with our infrastructure? Absolutely. Absolutely we are. Are we trying to meet fire code? I can't have a dead-end road that goes for miles to the end of a 7-acre parcel. The fire marshal's never going to approve that. They're never going to approve that. I would have to have turnarounds like constantly in order to make that work. So we want the water line to work. We want to maintain adequate water pressure as we move to the north end of the site. And we also, there's a grade change in the terrain where we'd get to a point where the sewer is not going to flow back to Rufina. So there are a lot of engineering considerations that resulted in the site plan you see, as well as a desire to create meaningful open space for these residents. Absolutely. Instead of everybody having their little, fiefdom and nobody has access to anything and you're kind of stuck this part of town is not served very well with public parks. There's not a lot over here. And so we were very interested in giving these residents a place to go, throw a football, walk the dog, whatever it may be.
Sure. So, Mr. Chairman and Ms. Jenkins, I mean, the gentleman that testified, he brought up a good point that we're basically here to approve something less than the .33.
I don't agree. I'm sorry. I strenuously
Well,
disagree with that characterization.
So if the part that I'm a little confused by here is how this is going to work in deeding a piece of property. Who lands up with the 3.5 acres of the open space in the end?
So the developer is the owner of the property.
Okay?
He will retain ownership of the entire 7 acres. He will be responsible for managing and maintaining the open space as a community amenity. That does not change hands.
So, but Mr. Chairman, Ms. Jenkins, you explained that somebody would have the option to buy their piece of,
And
eventually
yes,
after.
in the future, if that happens, if there is an opportunity to subdivide this property, there will be a homeowners association, because they're going to have to maintain the road, because Santa Fe County is not going to maintain it. So this homeowners association will own that open space. It'll be deeded to them. So the residents who live here will own that property.
So, Mr. Chairman and Ms. Jenkins, that kind of only works if everybody decides to buy kind of simultaneously, or is that not correct?
No, I mean, it's not going to happen simultaneously, and there will be frankly, I'm a little sorry I talked about what could happen 10 years from now.
Yeah.
It's really not what's relevant to our discussion today. I was just trying to give you a sense of the vision for the future. But let's talk about what we're here to talk about today. We have a request that is 100% compliant with every single element of your code.
Okay.
That's what we're here to talk about. We have no variances. Your staff has recommended approval. The hearing officer has recommended approval. This is the cleanest application you've probably seen in a while.
But, Mr. Chairman, Ms. Jenkins, you heard me ask that question at the very beginning. And frankly, you're the one that said at the very beginning that this is an opportunity for people to buy their property within 10 years. So I didn't
Yes,
throw out that
and that's on
philosophical-
me. I brought it up, so fair enough.
Okay,
That's on me. But
okay.
if I could return our focus to today, I would ask that we could return our focus to today and the request that's before you today.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Wendy?
Absolutely not. Thank you for bringing that up. Yeah, no street lights. No, we are not going to permit, those security floodlights are terrible. Those will not be permitted. The minimal lighting will be as required by code. Every entrance has to have a light. The county code requires that all lighting, even if it's just a sconce above a doorway, has to be fully shielded and downlit, so there can be no light shining up. So the lighting of this community will be very similar to the lighting of our neighbors to the east. You'll have a light by your back door, you have a light by your front door, and that is it. That is it, absolutely.
Thank you. The comments I have are with the density that you have, the 23 homes on a little more than half the land, and then the large portion of open space. I kind of would like to see the 23 homes to be on little bigger lots and the open space a little smaller. And on the open space, what kind of amenities are you going to have there?
So
is it going to be a grass field or going to be a
yeah,
playground?
so we're gonna,
or dirt track or dirt,
yeah,
whatever
we're gonna
it is?
leave, we want to leave, there's a lot of existing vegetation, so we want to leave that as undisturbed as possible. We're going to create a compacted dirt trail, so you can do a loop, and it'd be a nice, good loop to go get your steps in. We're going to have a gazebo shade structure back there that's going to have benches, and we're going to have trash receptacles and doggy stations and some shade trees. So just to create a nice place just to hang out and be outside.
Any other questions of Ms. Jenkins? Eric?
I would ask staff, so.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Ms. Jenkins.
Great, thank you.
Mr. Chair, I wonder if, Roger, one of the exhibits is an email from someone who indicated that they believe that the condensing of the homes to make them more affordable into this area is kind of cheating the code. And the first speaker said the same thing, taking these 23 parcels onto a portion of the 7.7 acres is kind of maybe the first guy's cheating the code. Do you read the code that way?
I certainly don't read the code to suggest that this is any sort of cheating or underhanded approach. The density applies to the entire parcel. This is remaining as a single parcel, and in fact, as Ms. Jenkins has commented, the idea of clustering homes or dwelling units within a parcel is actually deemed appropriate under our Sustainable Growth Management Plan. So I don't see anything underhanded either by a direct reading or even a reasonable interpretation of the intent of our ordinance.
Thank you very much.
Well, thank you. I had a couple of comments on that, but I think I will refrain from saying.
Mr. Chairman, and I think it's the 50 feet is what's the minimum that is reached here on the front entry that qualifies this. Is that correct?
Actually, I think the 50-foot reference was brought up simply to point out that even if they were seeking a true subdivision, they would satisfy the standards required as far as frontage, even for a subdivision. But that really doesn't come into play because it does remain a single parcel for now.
So then that begs the question, what if somebody came to you with 30 foot as the front, then in the density, there was more open space and the homes were closer, then that would still meet, would be under the same circumstance we are today.
Technically, you're right. That 30-foot frontage would not be a violation of the code as written. Might not be practical, but not a violation.
Next is, what are the wishes of the commission? Do we have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I'll move to approve with staff recommended conditions.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Do we have discussion? The discussion I have is that I wish that there was not so much density and that there would be more open space, in a central location. I agree with the open space that you have, but I think that the lot should be a little larger and the open space should be somewhere at the north end and somewhere towards the middle. That was what my comments on that. So we have a motion and a second. What are the wishes of the commission? Do we have a vote? Those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. The motion passes. Thank you very much. Now we have case number 245110, Matilda Farms LLC. And that is Maggie Chavez.
No Valdez? Can you hear me? Okay. Good evening, Mr. Chair, Planning Commission. My name is Maggie Valdez. I'm a Development Review Specialist
Maggie, I'm
Senior.
sorry, I said Chavez.
It's okay.
Valdez, correct that.
Today I come before you with case number 245110, Matilda Farms LLC Conditional Use Permit. Houston Johnson, applicant, New Mexico Land Solutions LLC, agent requests a conditional use permit to allow one 2,000 square foot hoop-style commercial greenhouse, two 160 square foot storage containers to be utilized as storage, two mixing tanks, 200 gallons each, and a 600 square foot office trailer to grow cannabis of up to 400 plants on 40.58 acres. Ordinance 2021-03, Section 102233 defines a cannabis producer or cannabis producer that cultivates cannabis plants indoors shall be treated the same as the following use: commercial greenhouse. The property is within the residential estate zoning district, Appendix B. The SLD illustrates a commercial greenhouse as a conditional use. Within the RESE zoning, the property is located at 26 Persa Street, formerly addressed as 27 Go-Way Street in Stanley, within Section 1, Township 10 North and Range 8 East, Commission District 3. The subject property is located at 27 Go-Away Court within the vicinity of Stanley and consists of 40.58 acres. The property is also within the residential estate zoning district of Santa Fe County. The applicant is required to abide by New Mexico Regulation and Licensing Department, RLD, regulations pertaining to licensing and operating the facility, including issues such as access, security, and monitoring by RLD. The applicant has obtained a New Mexico cannabis producer license. In response to the CUP criteria, the applicant states the following. The applicant has addressed the CUP criteria and staff has responded to the applicant's comments. Applicable SLDC design standards. The applicant has addressed the applicable design standards as regulated by the SLDCs. Building and Development Services staff has reviewed this project for compliance with the pertinent SLDC requirements and has found that the facts presented support the request for a conditional use permit to allow one 2,000 square foot hoop style commercial greenhouse, two 160 square foot containers to be utilized as storage, two mixing tanks, 200 gallons each, and a 600 square foot office trailer to grow cannabis of up to 400 plants on 40.58 acres, to be used as a commercial greenhouse for the purpose of producing cannabis. The use is compatible with the current development within the affected zoning district. The use will not impact adjacent land uses, and the applicant satisfies the submittal requirements set forth in the SLDCs, inclusive of the conditional use criteria set forth in Chapter 4, Section 4.9.6.5. The review comments have not been received by the State Historic Preservation Office, and county staff has established findings that this application to allow one 2,000 square foot commercial greenhouse and a 600 square foot office trailer to cultivate cannabis plants indoor is in compliance with the state requirements. Standards identified in the SLDC Section 10.22, Ordinance 2021-03, and required design standards set forth in the SLDCs. Hearing officer. On the August 8, 2024 hearing officer hearing, two individuals testified in opposition of the request for an outdoor production of cannabis at this site. One of the individuals feels that the outdoor production of cannabis is going to affect water consumption and had concerns on odor. The other individual had concerns on decrease in property values and safety and security issues and worried about lighting on the property. The testimony of these individuals is stated in the minutes recorded on August 29th, 2024 with the Santa Fe County Clerk's Office. Hearing officer recommendations. On August 8th, 2024, this request was presented to the Sustainable Land Development Hearing Officer. The hearing officer memorialized findings of fact and concern of law in a recommended order on this request. The hearing officer, based on the evidence presented, recommends that this application be granted, subject to the conditions required by staff. Staff recommends approval of a conditional use permit to allow one 2,000 square foot hoop-style commercial greenhouse, two 160 square foot storage containers to be utilized as storage, two mixing tanks, 200 gallons each, and a 600 square foot office trailer to grow cannabis of up to 400 plants, structures to be utilized as a commercial greenhouse for the purpose of producing cannabis indoors and subject to the following conditions. If the Planning Commission recommends approval of this conditional use permit, staff recommends the following conditions. Mr. Chair and Commission, may I enter the conditions into the record?
Yes, you may.
The CUP showing the site layout and any other conditions that may be imposed through the approval process shall be recorded at the expense of the applicants in the office of the county clerk in accordance with Chapter 4, Section 4.9.6.8. The approval of the CUP will allow for one 2,000 square foot hoop-style commercial greenhouse, two 160 square foot storage containers to be utilized as storage, two mixing tanks, 200 gallons each, and a 600 square foot office trailer utilized to cultivate cannabis plants as illustrated on the drawing that was submitted to staff. The applicant shall obtain a Santa Fe County business license. The facility shall comply with requirements set forth by the NMRLD for the collections and disposal of solid waste regarding unusable cannabis. The applicant shall obtain a building permit. The applicant shall improve the driveway to meet fire code standards for approval. The well shall have a meter with yearly readings reported to the state engineer's office. This report and exhibits listed below are hereby submitted as part of the hearing record. Mr. Chair, Commission, I stand for questions.
Thank you, Maggie. Do we have any questions of staff? If not,
I have a question,
Oh, yes,
Mr.
Ruben.
Chairman. Ms. Valdez, I mean, it's very noticeable that there's a ton of water rights on this property.
Yes, sir.
Did you hear anything about expansion in the future or anything like that?
No, sir, not
This
at
is like
this
the
time.
first phase, as I understand it, this is like a first phase. If you look at what the state requirements are, this is like the first phase they do, and then you can expand into other.
I have not heard anything about expansion on this cannabis. Right now, whatever's presented is all we're presenting. I mean, if there is any,
And I went through the documents, and I was a little confused about the ownership. I know you mentioned Dreamtime or whatever, and I think there's a Mohammed Gahir. I'm trying to understand how this is all playing out in
okay,
terms of.
so I'm gonna go ahead and have Land Solutions come up, and if that's okay with you guys, and then they could go on to doing their presentation for you.
That would be great, thank you.
thank you, Maggie. Is the applicant here? Wayne, get sworn in.
Wayne Dalton, 915 Mercer Street. Mr. Chair, do you want me to give my presentation or answer commissioners' questions?
Nathan Manzanares, 915 Mercer Street.
Mr. Chair, would you like me to go into my presentation or answer the commission's questions that were brought up to the staff?
Did you ask me a question?
Yes. Did you want me to proceed with the presentation, or did you want me to answer the questions from commission?
Go ahead.
Commissioners, right now, there is no request or anything for future expansion of this project. If in the future the applicant decides to expand this project, it would have to come forward back to the Planning Commission for another CUP.
No, I kind of understand that.
Okay, and the ownership of the property is owned by Dreamtime LLC, which leases the property to Matilda Farms, who is the applicant and owner of the proposed growing operation. Mohammed was actually the original property owner.
So who is Dreamtime LLC? Is that,
Dreamtime is another entity that owns the property.
but who owns Dreamtime? Who incorporated Dreamtime?
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, I'll let the applicant address that. He has more of that history than I do.
Yes, I do. My name is Houston Johansson,
Your address, please.
and I reside at 937 Mercer Street. Houston Johansson? No problem. Mr. Commissioner, fellow commissioners, I appreciate this opportunity to address you all. The property in question, the 40 acres down there and the associated water rights were purchased by my family about 3 years ago. We have an office in Texas, which is where this is incorporated, but the actual marijuana operation, which is Matilda Farms, is incorporated here in the state of New Mexico. And for a variety of reasons, our attorneys recommended sort of splitting those two entities up, keeping the water rights and land separate from the marijuana operation. I don't believe that's a particularly unique arrangement, but it is all under my family's ownership. We live here. I've lived here pretty much my entire life, so it's all within our control, our ownership, and yeah, I hope that answers that question.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, like staff stated in their report, we're requesting a conditional use permit to allow a small-scale cannabis growing operation of up to 400 plants. The hours of operation will be from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., Monday through Friday. Any pickups or deliveries to the proposed operation will be conducted once a month by a licensed courier. There will be a total of 2 employees on the site. This slide is a site plan, so you get an idea of how the site will be oriented on the property. So we have the greenhouse, 2,000 square foot greenhouse. We have 2 storage containers, and we have an office trailer located out in this area. And we have the fenced area, which consists of 60 feet by 140 feet. That will be an area that has a chain link fence of 8 foot in height, and also will have barbed wire on the top as well. This slide is a basic elevations and floor plans of the structures. On the top, you have the floor plan and elevation of the actual hoop house. On the left bottom corner, you have the elevations and floor plan of the office trailer, which consists of an office space and a space for additional storage. And on the right corner, you have elevations and floor plans of storage containers, which are 8 by 20 feet in length. For those of you who don't know, this is what a hoop house looks like. Mr. Chair, Commissioners, I want to address some issues that were brought up in the last hearing and also in our community meeting as well. One of the issues, as you guys all know, is water. The proposed growing operation will utilize an on-site well. The state engineer has granted the conditional utilization of 17.6 acre feet of leased water rights for commercial purposes on this property. The proposed water budget for the growing operation is 0.35 acre feet per year, or 114,000 gallons, a little over 114,000 gallons. The typical standard household utilizes 0.25 acre feet, or a little over 81,000 gallons per year. The proposed operation will utilize 0.1 acre feet or 32,000 gallons more than a typical standard household. And that issue was brought up at the last hearing. Liquid waste, the operation will have no restroom or indoor plumbing. The operation will utilize a portable toilet or restroom for the 2 employees on the site. You know that lighting is a big issue for these operations. And this operation will use only natural lighting as the primary lighting source. The only additional other lighting sources on the property will be security lights, which will be located above the doorways. Security for the operation. Matilda Farms will utilize surveillance cameras, electronic door locks, an 8-foot chain link fence, security fence around the entirety of the proposed growing area, and gates to provide security for the operation. The growing area fence will be 60 by 140 by 8 feet in height, made of chain link with razor wire on the top. There will be a 12-foot gate on the north and south side of the fenced area. The grow fence will be integrated with wind and privacy screen as well. Matilda Farms must comply with all state mandated requirements for security. Employees, like I stated earlier, there will be a total of 2 employees for this operation. This will consist of the applicant and a licensed grower. I think we addressed property ownership. Another issue that was brought up was noise, and due to the small scale of this operation, this will not create any additional noise above or beyond typical residential use as outlined in Table 7-21 of the SLDC for commercial uses. And also due to the vastness of the property and the proposed operation being set back several hundred feet from property lines in all 4 directions. Another big concern was odor, and we understand this concern, and the greenhouse will be equipped with an industry-standard commercial air scrubbing carbon filtration unit to eliminate nuisance odors permeating from the greenhouse. The odor produced by the cultivation of cannabis only occurs predominantly only 3 weeks out of every 12-week life cycle of a plant. And this occurs when the plant is flowering and is maturing. And the growth season, this issue was brought up at the last meeting as well. The growth season, the typical growing season will be from early spring to late fall, which basically 6 months out of the year. This is a slide to show you the access road. I'm standing on the at the intersection of Go Away Court and Roach Road, which is south of the property. And as you can see, we have a all-weather driving surface, and basically it's 20 feet in width all the way. The property will be at the top of the screen. These next slides are just pictures of the property itself, so you get an idea of what the property looks like. And Mr. Chair, I want to state that we have addressed the conditional use criteria outlined in the SLDC. We've received a positive recommendation from the hearing officer and a positive recommendation from the staff. And we are in agreement with all staff conditions, and I'll stand for questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Wayne. Do we have any questions of Mr. Dalton? Wendy?
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, Go Away Court is actually a private road. And I also did want to state, I didn't state this, well, there was a concern from the community regarding maintenance of Go Away Court. The applicant has agreed to contribute to the maintenance of Go Away Court.
Eric?
Mr. Chair, first a silly question. Is there something about a GOA, or is it really go away? Just trying to figure that out.
It's spelled Goa, but I think it's really Go Away.
Go away, got it. A question I did have is about the hoop structure. You showed in your photo a couple of different hoop structures, and your growing season is going to be in the summer. And you indicated that there would be carbon filtration. Is there sufficient power to be able to operate the ventilation that will be required to keep this thing under 150 degrees in the summertime? This is unless you have open sides like this, and I'm not really sure what the plan is, but is the plan to have a ventilated structure or a naturally ventilated structure or an actively ventilated structure? Thanks.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Bo, the idea is to have a ventilated structure, so with a filtration system.
I have a question of actually the applicant. Is this the time to ask?
Not yet.
Okay, great.
Any other questions of Mr. Dalton? Carl?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Dalton, so in the site plan, there's nothing else on this property, is that correct? No, there's not even anything currently, is that correct?
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, right now I believe there's a storage container and a water tank on the property,
Okay.
and a well. That's it.
And so, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Dalton, the idea you have 2 full-time employees out there, is going to be a porta potty out there? Is that what that's going to be?
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, that is correct. There will be a portable restroom for the 2 employees out there.
Okay. And Mr. Chairman, Mr. Dalton, the idea is, it's not my worry, but, typically a lot of these places have somebody living on premise, so there won't be anybody living there. Is that correct?
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, that is correct. There will not be somebody living on this property, but the applicant has just purchased a property to the southeast of this property, which he will utilize as a place where he can stay overnight, doesn't have to commute from Santa Fe to Stanley on a daily basis. So he'll be there to keep an eye on the facility. So there will be somebody around.
Okay. And Mr. Chairman, on the presentation here says the well is RG, which is Rio Grande Basin, but over here it's corrected, it's the Estancia Basin, which I looked up the permit on the state engineer's office, and the 17.6 acre foot, that's leased water right. Where is that water right being leased from?
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, I'll let the applicant elaborate on the water rights. I believe in the letter from the state engineers, it's from the Estancia Basin. But like I say, I'll let the applicant elaborate on the water rights.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. I think we have a question of Mr. Johansson. Please step forward.
So, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Johansson, there's a current well on the property, that's correct?
Yes, that is correct.
And so what is the associated water right with that currently?
So when we purchased the 40 acres in question a couple years ago, there was 34.37 acre feet of irrigation water rights attached to that land. That's sort of what made it interesting to us. That water right is held by Dreamtime LLC. It is indeed in the Estancia Basin. The well that is on site, that's about 300 foot, taps into that. We were advised under legal counsel, like I said earlier, to keep the water rights in one entity. And then to facilitate this, we were advised that we should take some portion of those rights and lease them out to the actual growing operation. So while my family does own all 34 acre feet of irrigation rights, we're only leasing back to Matilda Farm 17 of them. Now, we're not even trying to use that many, but the advice of our counsel was that you should build in a bunch of buffer to show that you're actively trying to use the water. As you all know, the state engineer does want you to show that you're doing something with this beneficial use. So we were advised to take half of that, lease it to the growing operation, again, keeping things separate for a variety of legal reasons. And that's how we arrived at these various numbers. So the water is legal. It's gone through every process that I could imagine you could go through. The well is there. It works. And, we're not going to use anywhere near what we potentially could use down there, because we do want to be good stewards of this resource and of this land. And in terms of just real quickly, the expansion concerns, at this time, this is a highly competitive industry we're stepping into. Margins are thin. It's easy for things to go wrong. So we have attempted to put a proposal together and a plan together for ourselves that is small but efficient. It's geared towards one specific outlet, or we're going to have one dispensary it's going to flow to. Hopefully it goes very well, but I don't anticipate at this time, coming back to you next year and saying, hey, can we triple operations? That's not my intention. I want to have a nice, simple, clean operation that is a good steward of the land, a good neighbor to the individuals who already reside down there. And as Wayne did mention, we recently purchased 28 Go Away, so there will be, and it has a manufactured home on it with a well and septic system. So when we are actually producing, when we are actually growing, there will be a place for myself or my employee to stay down there through the night, so that if something happens, whatever it could be, there will be somebody there that can address it to the best of their abilities.
Sure. Thank you for that explanation. And Mr. Chairman, it's interesting because, like you mentioned, you talk about how the water usage, you're going to be conservative and stewards of the land, but yet New Mexico law is a beneficial use, so it's contrary to that, and it's not your fault. It's just it's a major problem in this state. The question I had was, I think a micro grow is 200 plants and under. Is that correct, a license, or you've obtained something greater than that? Is that correct?
Yes, I have a license issued from RLD that would allow me to do a bit more, to do the 400 plants, yes.
Okay, so Mr. Chairman, is that up to 400, or that's just 200 and greater, do you know, or 201 and greater?
It would be I could do no more than 400, like that's it.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chairman, I had a question. As I understand water rights, you converted the 17 point whatever to commercial, right? Or was it already commercial?
We converted those through a process that the state engineer allows, that essentially allows a lease process. So if you have irrigation rights, and I'm not a water attorney, so if I don't get this exactly right, I do apologize. It's kind of complicated, but essentially we were told that if you have irrigation rights or other kind of rights, and you want to do something that might not be quite the right fit for those, if you set up an entity that owns them, and then you go to the state engineer and say, we're going to lease these to this other entity, you show exactly how that's going to be used. We had to go through a whole thing at the state engineer's office saying, we're going to use the water right here, this is how we're going to use it, this is who's going to be using it. While they're called commercial rights, I can kind of see where you're going with your line of questioning. I can't put it in a truck and truck it down the road and sell it.
No, what I'm saying is that according to how I understand water rights, you can convert from residential, whatever irrigation, to commercial, and yet you converted 17 point something acre feet when you only needed less than an acre foot per year.
Again, that was something that we were advised by our legal counsel to do. They really felt that to make this work, to make the state engineer feel like we were meeting some attempt to use water, that we should not do the bare minimum, that we should really do a nice large amount. That was the advice we were given. Unfortunately, that attorney is not here today to answer that in a more thoughtful way, I suppose, but that was the advice we were given, and given that the state engineer was okay with that, that's how we proceeded.
Yeah, so now you can understand why I asked about expansion, because you're literally using less than 1 acre feet per year.
Yes, I
and
understand.
you requested that 17 point something be converted to commercial.
Yes, we did. Again, it was the advice of legal counsel to do that. Legal counsel wasn't sitting there saying, hey, you should do this so you can expand. They were doing it because they felt it would be the best path to getting the state engineer to approve this process.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Oh, yes, Eric.
Mr. Johansson, you mentioned this is a thin margin business. And in our local newspaper the last couple of days, there have been articles about a number of dispensaries that are realizing that this is a thin margin business for them as well. And so I'm wondering, are you the growing talent who is going to be working on this, or do you have someone with that? We've been approving these, a large number of these, and really would be concerned that folks get kind of their reach exceeds their grasp. And so I just wonder if you have experience in this field, or you have someone you're going to bring in to do this, because we want to make sure that anything that we would possibly approve would succeed commercially. Thanks.
Mr. Commissioner, I mean, that's an excellent concern and point to bring up. Growing anything, whether it be marijuana or tomatoes, is in the desert especially, is a no-joke operation. It doesn't matter what you're trying to grow, I suppose, other than the elms that just, proliferate. I have some experience in this. I am working with someone, though, who has a vast, many-year experience with this, and the dispensary that we will be putting our product into is offering us quite a bit of advice through this process. So we're not going to just pick up, marijuana for dummies and flip through it and hope this works out, because, we've put a lot of time and thought into this plan, and I really do want to emphasize, yeah, I could have come in here and said, I want to do 10,000 plants, 17 greenhouses, I want to use every drop of water I can, and that would have absolutely been a recipe for disaster. We've attempted to create a proposal for you all and for ourselves that scopes what we're doing and allows us to do so in a way that I think we can succeed and create a quality product that can make us some money, but not overdo it, not overtax the land, not overtax our water resources, not put undue pressure on our neighbors, and not put undue pressure on ourselves, not only from a physical standpoint, but yeah, if we had a huge operation, the amount of money that we'd have to put up to get that done, the amount of debt we might have to go into, it'd be so easy for that ship to sink. So I am not just winging it. I am working with people who have experience in this. That's no guarantee it will work. I understand that. So if you read in a year, Houston Johansson's farm failed, I apologize. But we are trying our best to make sure that when we do break ground, when we do get plants going, that we have the best possible chance to do it right and to make some money.
Thank you. Any other questions of Mr. Johansson?
Other than, thank you for that answer. I mean, we are a capitalistic society, and you're taking the risk, and wish you luck.
Thank you. I really appreciate that, Commissioner.
Now, I've got one last question.
Please.
The office space that you have, why don't you have a bathroom in it for employees?
Well, two reasons. One is, again, trying to scope this project both in terms of costs and, frankly, permitting, right? Already this has been a arduous process. I understand it's important that we have a process that is diligent, thoughtful, takes its time, but between working with the state engineer, working with RLD, working with the county, I wanted to limit how many more complications we put on there. Now that we have the other property, 28 Go Away, which absolutely has a restroom, my employee could easily just walk over there, use that facility, not an issue. I could walk over there and use that facility. We have no intention of, say, renting it out to tenants. We have no intention of selling it anytime soon. It will be there. It's right there. It looks out over the whole property. So that's why we went that route.
What are you going to do with the remainder of the 40 acres that's not used for cannabis?
Just enjoy the beauty of that part of the world.
Okay, so.
It is a spectacular piece of land. The east side of the Sandias is gorgeous. I think it's a beautiful piece of land, and I don't have any intention of, at this time, of cluttering it up with junk or other things. Like, let's keep it as open as we can.
Thank you. Wayne, do you have another wrap up?
Not at this time, Mr. Chair. Maybe after the public comment.
Thank you. This is a public hearing. Do we have any members of the public wishing to speak for or against this case? Please step forward and get sworn in.
Yes, I do.
My name is Kim Peck. I own the property at 25C Turlin Drive. I also own the property at 45 Turlin, which is right behind this proposed complex that they want to build. My major concern is that there's another grow house about 50 yards, maybe 100 yards behind them. And at night, the lights are on half the night, sometimes they're not on, and the lights are so bright that they just basically wash out the whole horizon. Now, I know he said they were going to use natural lighting, but what's going to keep them from installing grow lights sometime down the road? The other concern I have, this has all been zoned commercial or residential real estate, which to me means homes and small agricultural operations. I mean, this is basically a business that produces and manufactures narcotics. And I kind of wish that they would just find somewhere else more secluded to go to. There's a lot of other homes designated to come out into that area right there. Those are my concerns.
Well, thank you very much. Anyone else? Please step forward.
Yes. So my name is Julie Jacob. I'm here with my husband, Paul Bernard, and we live at 243 Hale Road in Stanley. Our property borders Matilda Farms property. We have a few objections, obviously, to the CUP request. Some of my questions and concerns were answered a little bit today, so if it seems a little redundant, apologize for that. I'm also asking questions throughout this statement that I'm going to finish reading everything I have to say, and then if these are questions that can be answered in this process, that'd be great. But I'm going to fly through them, and we'll circle back if needed. Okay? So my first objection to this request is I find it inconsistent with the CUP criteria number 7, in that it's inconsistent with the purposes of the property zoning classification. As stated, we're in a residential estate zone, while a commercial greenhouse is allowed in the zone with the CUP. We would argue that the purpose of a residential e-property is to allow residential development, as Kim has pointed out, not support strictly commercial operations. As stated within the SLDC code, a residential E-zone was created to designate areas suitable for a combination of large lot and suburban type residential development, ranchettes, and other compatible uses. The residential E-district supports single-family homes on medium-sized lots consistent with contemporary community development. And that's what we thought we bought into when we bought our home in a residential E-zone. We have another commercial cannabis operation, High Desert Relief, that was approved over a year ago and operates within our zone already. And it's right across from where Matilda Farms is proposing building theirs. Putting yet another commercial operation in the middle of our residential zone does not support the intended purpose of the area. Matilda Farms, until today, I didn't hear about their purchase of the southeast property, but they don't have a residence on the property. They're only buying a residence to support the commercial operation, but they don't have a residence on the property, and neither does High Desert Relief. If approved, this would be the second commercial cannabis operation situated in the middle of our residential E-zone neighborhood. These are clear commercial operations with no residential intentions and have no place in our neighborhood community. There are several types of zones and lands available that don't require CUP, that are more suitable and would not interfere with residential life. They don't have to be put in right next to people's homes. Number 2 is criteria number 6. This CUP request does not meet that criteria. It will interfere with adequate light and air. The light was addressed by Kim, but air, everybody knows that these types of farms stink. They stink like skunk. We walk outside our house to feed our horses, and you're like, oh my gosh, was there a skunk last night? And you're like, oh, no, it's everywhere. And it's there for hours, okay? It creates air pollution. Despite industry standard commercial air scrubber carbon filtration systems to combat a known problem with these operations, this industry standard is a failure. We live about 1 mile east of High Desert Relief, the current commercial greenhouse in operation, and we can smell it quite strongly at times, despite their use of these same odor mitigation systems. Matilda Farms will be even closer, building their greenhouse within 500 yards of one of my neighbor's homes. We should have the right in our residential zone to not be subjected to cannabis stench on a regular basis. It violates the criteria number 6. The industry standard technology fails to mitigate the smell for nearby residences, especially given the frequent westerly winds on the plains of New Mexico. And just for reference, there are 6 homes within 1 mile directly east of Matilda Farms location, in addition to several other homes to the south. All right, third point, criteria number 1. Matilda Farms operation fails to meet the CUP criteria number 1. It will be detrimental to the safety and general welfare of the area. And I'm referring to the SLDC ordinance 2021-03, which states the cannabis growing guidelines. And under section 10.22.24, it states, and I quote, cannabis cultivation, production, and manufacturing creates strong odors, can involve the use of significant amounts of energy and water, and requires security and other measures to reduce the risk of theft or other diversion to the illegal cannabis market. And I have to ask, why would Santa Fe County allow a second commercial cannabis operation within a defined residential E-zone that, by the county's own words, elicits crime, reduces neighborhood security, produces strong odors that are not resolved during using these industry standard practices, and uses valuable, already limited water resources for a commercial luxury item? Again, we are a residential neighborhood. Residents should come first. This is not a suitable location for this type of business, and certainly not for a second one. And water. I'm going to harp on water a little bit. This is a valuable and limited resource. Matilda Farms well, in addition to my and my neighbor's wells, draw from the Estancia Basin, as we talked about earlier. As I also understand, our properties are identified within a critical management area for water, and if I'm wrong about that, you can correct me. But while Matilda Farms may have the appropriate water rights and approval from the state engineer to use them for cannabis plants, we all need to be aware that more and more residential wells are running dry, our own included. Ours has dropped 40 feet since it was built, and we're already down another 40 feet, and we only have a little bit left to go. And I'm sure we're not alone in our area. And the Estancia Basin water level is estimated to be dropping at a rate of 2 feet per year, and that's per the Estancia Basin Water Planning Committee. We have 3 acre-foot water rights, Paul and I, more than we need. But no matter how many rights any of us have, including Matilda Farms, if it all goes dry, it doesn't matter. I want to ask Santa Fe County, is it in the best interest of the residents within an established residential E-zone to have their declining well water used toward yet another commercial cannabis operation? Is this part of the sustainable development? How is Santa Fe County addressing declining water levels and increasing cannabis production facilities? Also, I just want to ask Matilda Farms, again, this is one of those questions. They've stated their water use is estimated to be 2 liters per plant per day, and all the research I've done would suggest that's super low. Conservatively, I found that it takes 10 liters per day per plant if grown indoors, and double that if you grow them outdoors. I just want some clarification where they came up with 2 liters per plant. And the number of plants, I think this was addressed by Maggie, that he holds a commercial producer license. At the officer hearing, or the hearing officer meeting, he had mentioned having a micro business license, which I thought was only 200 plants, but we have had that clarified. I do want to talk then about expansion. A 2,000 square foot greenhouse can clearly hold much more than 400 plants. Conservatively, it could easily house 1,000 plus plants. I have to assume they're planning to expand. Also, the water rights discussion makes me think that too. And in our neighborhood meeting back in April of 2023, Drew Stewart with High Desert Relief, who has the current commercial greenhouse, he indicated he had interest in expanding at the time, but he was waiting on the market. So if the market turns, is everybody now going to be looking to expand in our residential E zone? And do you guys tend to allow such expansions if you guys are making money too? And is this in line with our residential E zone neighborhood? If they get established and it all works, are we just going to keep growing cannabis bigger and bigger in our neighborhood zone? And lastly, I want to talk about oversight. Santa Fe is an hour away. Mr. Johansson is currently an hour away, also living in Santa Fe. Stanley's out of sight, out of mind. Who monitors how many cannabis plants are grown? Does Santa Fe County know how many High Desert Relief currently has growing? What about the water use? Is there regular monitoring of water use, especially during the growing phase? How much water did High Desert Relief use this past year? Do we have those numbers? Is there regulation on that? And is it consistent with their application, what they said they were going to use? I want to remind everyone of Torrance County, and if you're not familiar with it, there's a lot of articles in the Albuquerque, and NPR.org has an article about Bliss Farms and Shiprock. And there were 2 cannabis operations there that were recently shut down and fined millions of dollars in violation, mostly for growing in excess of what they were supposed to, and suspected growing and selling illegally. They weren't tracking it, and it wasn't even caught until later down the road. I don't want to see this happen to Santa Fe County, and I certainly don't want it in my literal backyard. In summary, this application does not meet all CUP criteria. It is not in compliance with number 1, 6, or 7. It will be detrimental to the health, safety, and general welfare of the area due to the very nature of a cannabis business, and as defined within Santa Fe's very own SLDC ordinance. And it will be inconsistent with the original intentions of a residential E zone. Additionally, it creates strong odors that are not appropriately controlled for industry standard practices for a residential area, nor is it the best use of a valuable limited resource, water. Lastly, we have concerns regarding the ability of Santa Fe County to provide adequate oversight to a known and potentially dangerous business operation, since it's over an hour away and out of sight, out of mind again. I would suggest Matilda Farms find another more appropriately zoned property to grow cannabis that does not require CUP and that's farther away from established residences. We aren't against the cannabis industry, but why are we growing it in the middle of a neighborhood? We do not need another cannabis operation within our neighborhood right next to the other one, and I'm concerned that the county is not fully considering its potential growing impact. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have any other people? Yes, please step forward, get sworn in.
Paul Bernard. I'm Julie's husband. We're both at 243 Hale Road in Stanley. I would first like to just support everything that Julie has just said. In addition, I have a statement. This is a letter from our neighbor, Kim Cook, who lives right next door to us at 239 Hale Road. Kim, she's not able to be here, so she asked me to read this on her behalf. To whom it may concern, I'm writing to express my strong opposition to the proposed cannabis grow farm seeking a conditional use permit in our residential area. I do not want to repeat the rebuttals that my neighbors Julie and Paul have already stated, and I've already stated my objections in the previous hearing. I will state my biggest concerns are lack of oversight due to distance and illegal expansion. This project proposes significant threats to our community's health, safety, and environmental integrity, particularly due to the severe challenges in providing adequate oversight. The proposed cannabis farm's location over an hour away from any city officials makes effective monitoring nearly impossible, leaving our community vulnerable to unchecked expansion and rule violations. The lack of regular in-person oversight due to distance creates a dangerous scenario where the farm could easily increase production, use more water than permitted, and add more employees without detection. The proposed 400 plants are unlikely to generate sufficient income to support the operation's profits, legal fees, distribution costs, and facility build and maintenance. This economic pressure, combined with minimal oversight, could incentivize the operators to expand beyond their permitted scope. Furthermore, the distance barrier would make it challenging to monitor light pollution, odor control measures, and adherence to security protocols, potentially leading to increased crime risks in our area. While robust oversight measures such as frequent inspections, real-time monitoring, and a community feedback system might be suggested, the reality is that these would be extremely difficult, if not impossible, to implement effectively given the farm's remote location. Unannounced inspections become impractical when officials must travel for hours. Remote monitoring systems can be tampered with or circumvented, and by the time community feedback reaches the appropriate authorities and action is taken, significant damage could already be done to our water resources, environment, and community well-being. In conclusion, I strongly urge you to reject this proposal. The combination of a cannabis grow operation's inherent risks and the insurmountable oversight challenges posed by its distant location make this project fundamentally incompatible with our residential area. The potential for unchecked expansion, excessive water use, and rule violations is too great, threatening the long-term health and sustainability of our community. Our neighborhood should not bear the brunt of these risks due to impractical and ineffective oversight. Thank you for your careful consideration of these critical issues. Sincerely, Kim Cook. In addition to that statement, I would just like to make a couple of ad hoc comments based on what I've heard tonight about the proposal. One was that part of the projected growing season was stated to be early spring to late fall, and that was summarized as 6 months. And I don't know how you can characterize early spring to late fall as only 6 months. I mean, just add the months, it's more like 8. And that during the course of that time, only 3 out of each 12-week grow period would be an odor-generating period. And just do the math, 3 out of 12 weeks is a quarter of the time. And a quarter of the time is too much if you go out on your porch and are driven back inside by the odor, as we already are being downwind of a current operation that is even farther away from us than the proposed operation. That's all of my remarks.
Thank you very much. Any other members of the audience want to speak? Jordan, anybody online?
Yes, Chair. We have a Tate Whitman that would like to speak.
Okay. What was her name again?
It is Tate Whitman.
Ms. Whitman?
Yes.
Oh, Mr. Whitman, can you hear
Yes.
me?
Yes, ma'am, I can
Raise your
hear
right
you.
hand.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're going to give is the truth?
Yes, ma'am, I do.
And will you also provide your address and your name, please?
Sure. I live at 41 Go Away in Stanley, New Mexico. We're, other than the other residents that the applicant has recently purchased, the closest residence to the proposed property. And I would like to revisit all of the other concerns that my neighbors have brought up. We're all concerned about the amount of safety risks that this greenhouse will bring to our neighborhood. This is a residential neighborhood. It's not a commercially zoned location. There may be only 2 employees fully on payroll, but how many employees will be needed to build the greenhouse, to maintain the greenhouse? Will there be an influx of employees throughout certain growing periods? We can also smell an odor from the high desert relief greenhouse that has as well industry standard filtration. And again, the lighting issue. We were told that it would be natural light only, but I am concerned that there will be a lack of oversight that will hold the applicant to maintaining a natural light only form of cultivating cannabis simply because of profit margins. The sun goes on earlier and comes up later. And will that affect the amount of growing time needed to meet needed profit margins required to maintain operations? We're concerned about the road that we live on, that we paid to have built. That's a private road. It's not a state road. It's not a county road. It's not a township road. I stated concerns in the letter that I believe was entered into the record. And there are many concerns that we have about how this is going to be dealt with, and the fact that it's a commercial operation being considered for a residentially zoned neighborhood. I'm also joined with my father-in-law, Norton Henniger, who would like to also speak in opposition of the commercial greenhouse. I'm going to go ahead and hand the phone to him so he can say what he needs to say. Thank you.
Hello.
Hello, would you state your name and address after you've been sworn in, please? Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're going to give is the truth?
Yes.
Your name and address, please?
Norton Henninger. My address is 48A Roach Road, Stanley, New Mexico. My concern is mainly as I am the individual that built Go Away. I invested $20,000 of my own money to build it so that my daughter could have a place to live. And we've had several neighbors that claimed that they were going to help take care of the road. And the first was an owner of 28 Go Away who went bankrupt and never helped in any manner, fashion, financially, or with labor to help build the road. The second neighbor is the one that just sold the property to Matilda, well, I guess it's Matilda Farms, who's lived there now for about 3 years and promised to help maintain Go Away, and once again sold and left, and in no fashion, form, or manner has ever contributed to any maintenance on the road. So I'd like to make sure that there's a provision in the documents for this farm that they will bring the road up to county standards and will continue to help maintain the road financially and in any other form of maintenance that needs to be done. Because prior to this, I've been the only one that's done any maintenance on the road for the last 10 years. And I've run out of patience with neighbors that promise to do stuff, but never stand up and do it. And that's my main concern. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anybody else online, Jordan?
Chairman, there is nobody else indicating they wish to speak on this topic.
Okay, thank you. Wayne, I think you have a couple of questions you might be able to answer. Mr. Johansson also, I think. This lady had numerous questions. Did you write some of them down?
Mr. Chair, I believe we addressed all the concerns from the community with our presentation. We've addressed water use, we've addressed lighting, we've addressed odor. This isn't a residential, this property is within the residential estate zoning district. However, the SLDC allows certain uses in the residential estate zoning district, and this is one of the uses it permits under a conditional use permit. You know, Mr. Chair, Commissioners, we did not write the code, we did not adopt the code. Our job is to comply with the code. We feel we've complied with the code, staff feels we've complied with the code, and the hearing officer feels that we've complied with the code.
Thank you. Yes, Wendy?
My understanding, Commissioner, is that the previous owner had a pumpkin farm there. That's what I understand he grew there. A pumpkin farm? So yeah, I believe that's what he grew there. I don't know how long he did that, but that's my understanding. And when I met him, when we were purchasing it, he talked about having a pumpkin farm and even had some pictures of his harvest. You know, I can't speak to that specifically. My suspicion is it may have used more because he was irrigating from what I could tell. We were, you know, this was winter time when we were down there meeting him, so I couldn't see it in operation. But just looking at how the tract of land had been tilled and things like that and the number of pipes he had out there for irrigation, I would suspect he was using more than I'm proposing to use. I don't know that to be a fact, but that would be my guess. No, there is not a ditch.
A couple of questions I had is, one is the growing season. You mentioned that you will grow three crops per year in the growing season. How do you figure that? You know, the gentleman said that was maybe a little optimistic. Is that optimistic or is that realistic?
Well, so we anticipate really having just one crop and one harvest. Our season will likely, in all reality, because we're not going to, you know, we'll be bringing in plants from a licensed producer of clones and things like that, and we will be putting them into the greenhouse. That our growing season will not start, you know, day one of spring and end, you know, day one of fall. It will likely be something more like June into October. I can't really do math very quickly in my head, so I don't know if that's exactly 6 months, but this will not be a wintertime operation. This will not be the first moment of spring. We're down there just growing like crazy. So we're really anticipating having one crop that we grow through the summer using natural light. We harvest it in the fall, and then it is taken off site and will be, you know, manufactured into a different product somewhere else by a licensed facility. No money is going to be transacted or held there at all. None of that's going on there. This is simply a place for us to grow the crop and then haul it out after we've, you know, cut it down and you know, cut off some of the leaves and things like that. So that's really what we're trying to do. And I do kind of, if you don't mind, if I could address the light thing maybe a little more with a little more nuance. I understand nobody likes light pollution. I would say first, if I was trying to plop a bunch of houses down here in 40 acres, that may in fact create more light pollution. But beyond that, the kind of plants that we're looking to grow, the way in which we're looking to grow, and the end product that we're looking to produce actually will be hindered if we had a lot of light at night going on there. Our practice crops that we have done, we actually have to tint them at night because of street lights coming in. And that's one of the reasons this property was of interest to us, because we knew it would have low light pollution. So if our neighbor, the other facility, is kicking off a lot of light at night, that will actually be a hindrance to us as well. We're not looking to have grow lights into the winter. We're not looking to grow into that season. We're looking to have a specific kind of plant that does very well in natural light. And then when it comes nighttime, it needs to shut down and go into its, for lack of a better term, sleep cycle. If it starts getting hit with other light, it gets confused and will actually mess up our crops. So we're very light conscious. Yes, sometimes we're going to be in there with headlamps doing things, but even then it will likely be a red or green light because they don't affect the plant in the same way that, you know, overhead incandescents or LEDs would. You know, we don't want to trick these plants, confuse them, have them start doing things at inappropriate times.
You know, the other question I had is your water used on your plants. You know, it was mentioned that you said that there was 2 liters per day or 2 quarts or 2 gallons. What is the actual usage? And somebody said that maybe you needed 10 liters per day. What is the amount that you used different times of the season?
Our plants, the way we are anticipating growing, everything we've discussed with the people advising us, the dispensary I mentioned earlier, who we're working with actively, the gentleman who will be who has experience in this field, who I'm growing with, 2 liters per day is a very solid estimate for our usage per plant. The kind of plant we're doing, the way we're doing it, we don't need excessive water use. You'd actually be surprised how efficient you can be when growing marijuana. And if you stacked it up against a lot of the other crops, I'm not even talking about marijuana, that are grown down in that part of the world. I mean, the person who owns the plot just south of me, they grow alfalfa. That's fine with me, but I promise you that uses way more water per day than my operation will. And to the question of the 2,000 square feet and 400 plants, there will be very little extra room when those plants are growing. Yeah, when they're this big, sure, there's a lot of extra room, but as they grow tall and they grow out, and you need the ability to move around your plants, check them for pests, trim them up accordingly, make sure they're getting the appropriate amounts of water and feed, everything's working well, you need some work room in there. You can't just, you can't have rows this narrow. You need some room to actually move around in. So we've sized this to be a greenhouse that would effectively grow 400 plants and do so comfortably for both myself, my employee, and the plants that are in there.
The other question I had is, are you going to have a separate meter for the water you use in your greenhouse from the well? Or is that just going to be water from your well?
At this time, I had intended to have just the meter and there is a meter on the well currently. It's down there. It's been approved by the state engineer's office. That's what I had intended to use, mostly because we're not doing anything else with the water. So, if I use a gallon and it says that on the meter at the wellhead, then that gallon's going into that greenhouse. So I had not anticipated putting a second meter into the system.
Thank you. Do we have any more questions of the applicant? Go ahead. Yes, Eric.
Go ahead, Eric.
Thank you. Yes, I'd like to ask Mr. Johansson, my understanding is that you need to, there is a question about jurisdiction and concern that this operation would be far from jurisdictional authorities. So the state engineer is the one who is responsible for enforcing the water requirements. You need to submit water meter readings to them quarterly, I believe, right? I think that's what's in the
I actually
letter
believe
we
it's
have.
monthly that I'll have to be submitting.
Okay, and so that information is publicly available from the state engineer. RLD will be the weed count folks, right? So the county staff are not necessarily responsible to make sure you're not growing 415 plants or whatever. So that's the regulation and licensing department. And can you speak a little bit to whatever, do you understand what kind of enforcement operation they have, either Wayne or if you know, do you know?
Well, as one of the other individuals who talked today mentioned, there have been some operations that have been nailed by the state, by RLD, for far exceeding their plant count, and they've been shut down. So the state is out there making inspections, enforcing their laws. I'm sure it's not perfect. No system is, but I'm sure they're doing the best job that they can, and I'm sure as they get more experience with this year after year, they will get better and better at it. When you start growing, whether it be from seed or from a clone, you have to enter that into what's called BioTrack. It is an online system that the state contracts with a company to manage. So there is a clear chain of custody from the moment that seed germinates to the moment that seed's put into the ground, or if it was an indoor facility, let's say, into the indoor facility, to the moment it's harvested. And there's a clear chain of custody to each stage. So when I take possession of it, that is tracked. And then the state can engage in both planned and surprise inspections, at least that's my understanding, of my facility sort of at any time. So if I'm mid-grow and they think for some reason I'm not doing it correctly, or they just decide my number's up that day, they can come out, they can look at my plants. It's pretty easy to count the plants because they're gonna be in one spot. If I've exceeded my count, there are a variety of penalties that I would come under. And if it's too many plants, the fines get pretty steep and the operation would essentially fail. So you are correct, that is the state of New Mexico's job to regulate that. Every year I have to resubmit an application saying this is what I'm gonna be doing. I have to pay the fees on that. They have to look at my plan and sign off on it. And, oh yeah, please go ahead.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Bo, just to piggyback off that, Mr. Johansson will also have to obtain a commercial business license from the county, which will also have annual inspections from the fire department and so on and so forth. So when he does that annual inspection, it's another safeguard to ensure that no expansion has taken place on the site. If I may, I wanted to share my screen and just show the commission an aerial of this site. There's been a lot of talk about this being in a neighborhood. It's really not. It is zoned residential estate by the county, but if you look at it, I'm gonna pull it up right now if whoever in IT allows me to share. Each lot out here is actually anywhere from 40, 80, 160 acre tracts that are predominantly agricultural uses, and you'll be able to see it from this aerial. Okay, I think they're pulling it up right now. Thank you. And while we're waiting, I just want to shed light that, this has gone, let's see. I think he's trying to pull it up. Nonetheless, this has gone through the proper, thorough review from staff, from state agencies. This is an extremely small operation, and it's extremely low water usage. We do understand that the neighbors do have concerns, but this request is one of the smallest, if not the smallest, cannabis request that's been brought forth to this commission. And Matt, are you able to pull that up? No, it's, you need to give me permission.
His browser or something.
I'm just getting it.
Oh, you're sharing that, so you have to stop sharing that and start sharing the other. Edge, or what do you want? What do you want to share?
Well, nonetheless, if you do look at it, I believe Commissioner Wendy Piard has looked at it and has kind of looked at Google Earth, and you can see significant evidence of, as Mr. Johansson said, alfalfa crop, a ton of different agricultural crops in that area, and just wanted to highlight that.
Thank you, Nathan, thank you. I think, Mr. Johansson and Nathan, I think we can probably move forward. Would you agree?
Thank you. I really do appreciate this time with you all today, Commissioners, and to you as well, County
Mr.
staff.
Chairman, I did have a question for them.
Ruben,
Is the water usage you gave us, because I remember the lady saying that you were off in your calculation, is that the same amount you gave to the state in your application?
Yes, it is.
You guess?
No, that is
It
the
is.
amount that I gave to the state, yes.
And I have a question for staff. Is there some reason we don't review the state's application from the applicant? So that way we don't have any confusion when this information is brought to us?
Chair, Commissioners, we do review some of the information, but it is really not part of our CUP process. We can't deviate from the process and create more rules for them that are not inside the SLDC.
Well, it just seems prudent that, we could have answered very quickly the question that one of the ladies, one of the residents had about water usage, if we had had access to just look at the state's application from the applicant.
I completely understand what you're saying, but currently we just require proof of water from the state engineer, and we require proof of licensing from NMRLD. That is what's stated in the CUP process for cannabis grows.
On Exhibit 9, it was submitted in your packet for the Office of the State Engineers.
I did see that, the state engineer's report on the acceptance of the commercial.
But it also goes on to tell you
But
the
I guess-
amount of water that was transferred.
I guess I just thought it would be prudent if we did get a look at the state application and we could collaborate. A lot of the information is being presented to us. And I understand what Jordan is saying. I'm just saying that it would be something that would save us some time, frankly. Thank you.
So, Mr. Chairman,
yes, Carl?
thank you. And so I did look up this well, and this well was drilled in 1950. It actually was associated with 160 acres to begin with, so it was probably broken into 4 lots of 40 acres. It originally had 160 acre-foot of water, and as it states, currently it has 34.375 acre-foot of diversion from that property. You've transferred, sounds like your parent company's leased half of it to this operation, which is to the tune of about 5.5 million gallons of water that you could use annually, legally, because the state engineer is the one that administers water rights. And so I think we're in the mud over here as far as whether it's 2 gallons or whatever, 3 gallons, because there's literally, you can use up to 5 million gallons of water on this right.
My whole point was that I think we had another cannabis operation applicant some time back, and I asked about the socioeconomic equity plan that's included in the state application, and that states how many people they're going to hire, what they're going to do for their community. I think it's something that we should take a glimpse at. Thank you.
So, Mr. Chairman, and I have it'd basically be a question directed to staff. So, as you know, as you mentioned, this cannabis industry right now is going through growing pains, and it's the margins have come down, and you're investing money, and it states here the greenhouse is on light, natural light. And now, because people are concerned about light pollution, and it sounds like you are as well, but now assume the margins are low and you decide we're going to put grow lights in this and we're going to light it up like Yankee Stadium. In the SLDC code, they've given an intent here, but that doesn't mean, is there anything in there that there's a compliance issue within the code that says this place is lit up like Yankee Stadium?
Chair, Commissioners, there actually is. We have the dark skies ordinance, and so code enforcement would be out there dragging them into court immediately.
Okay, so those worries for residents that it's going to be lit up all night.
That is correct, and we actually took down the address of the other grow, and we're going to send code enforcement out there to take a look at it and see if it is violating the ordinance.
Okay. Okay, those are all the questions I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Gentlemen, thank you for your presentation.
Thank you, Commissioners.
We'll close the public hearing. What are the wishes of the commission? Do we have a motion?
I'm motioning to approve the conditional use permit for case 5110, including all of the conditions that were recommended by staff.
Thank you, Wendy. Do we have a second?
Well, second.
Thank you, Carl. We have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion? Eric?
If we could, I just want to touch base with staff again. Is that
Yes.
allowed? So I want to go back to the oversight. As I think I brought up, the state engineer has responsibility for tracking water consumption. The regulation and licensing department has responsibility for tracking cannabis expansion. And the county, through its code enforcement officers, and they're essentially complaint-driven. So, for example, you heard a complaint today from the podium of the adjacent, but you have the jurisdiction and oversight of making sure that all the conditions of any of these permits are enforced. And so if a condition for lighting or something, I just want to reiterate that it's kind of split responsibility. So it's not, the government is not doing it, it's split, I just want to be clear on that.
Chair, Commissioners, that is correct. If we got a complaint out there for lights and code enforcement went out there and thought that they saw more than 400 plants out there, our first call would be to the state to get them back out there to look at it. If it appears that they have water running across the ground, we contact the state engineer. If we get the complaint driven, because unfortunately we're not able to be proactive, we have to be reactive because of the size of the county. But as soon as a complaint is filed, code enforcement is out there, and we involve the state agencies if needed.
Thanks very much. And that's 986-6225?
That is correct.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? If not, those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. It's unanimous, so thank you very much. The next case is case number 245140. Marie Martinez.
I apologize in advance. I'm having some issues with my asthma today, so. Thank you, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. Marie Martinez, Building and Development Review Specialist with the Growth Management Division. Case number 245140, Jezebel Incorporated, Conditional Use Permit. Jezebel Incorporated, Jessica Kaplan, applicant, is requesting a conditional use permit to allow a bar tavern within the existing 2,500 square foot structure, Unit A, and 800 square foot of outdoor patio area. The site is within the Madrid Community District Overlay, MCD, with the base zoning as traditional community, and is within the Madrid Rural Commercial Overlay, MCD O-RC, Section 9.6.4.1.2 MCD overlay zone states. Supplemental conditional uses, MCD TC. The following uses are only allowed in the MCD O-RC within the MCD TC Bay zoning district: bars, taverns, nightclubs, and tattoo parlors. The property is located at 2860A New Mexico Highway 14, Madrid, SDA-2, Commission District 3, parcel ID 910008963. Summary. The applicant is requesting the approval of a conditional use permit to allow for a tavern within the existing structure. This tavern will be a sit-down serving style, no bar. The tavern would only be serving beers and wines, no spirits. The tavern area will not take up more than 2,500 square feet within the structure. Presently, there is a fine art gallery operating out of Unit B and an old-fashioned soda fountain operating out of Unit A, as well as a gift shop. These businesses will continue to operate as usual. The applicant proposes to add beer and wine to the lunch service and expand the restaurant into dinner hours comfortably. They intend to keep the old-fashioned soda fountain as an alcohol-free zone. Jezebel Incorporated is on Highway 14 North. Utility access is in the rear of the building, off of Ice House Road. The building is over 100 years old. It was originally the general store in the 1800s when Madrid was a coal mining town. There are 4 units. Jezebel Incorporated occupies Unit A and B. Next to Unit A, there is a small yard. This is a loading dock with no parking allowed that can be utilized for emergency vehicles. At the northern end of the boardwalk will be a handicap ramp, as well as a handicap parking spot. On the north side of the building, there is Ice House Road. Down Ice House Road is the rear employee's entrance, as well as a utility access point. Access permit C2023-018. The applicant has addressed the variance criteria, and staff has responded to the applicant's comments. Building and Development Services staff has reviewed the project for compliance with pertinent SLDC requirements and has found that the facts presented support the request for a conditional use permit to allow a bar or tavern within the existing 2,500 square foot structure, Unit A, and 800 square feet of outdoor patio area. The use is compatible with the current development within the affected zoning district. This use will not impact adjacent land uses, and the application satisfies the submitted requirements set forth in the SLDC, inclusive of the conditional use criteria set forth in Chapter 4, Sections 4.9.6.5. The review comments from the state agencies and county staff have established findings that this application to allow a bar or tavern within the existing 2,500 square foot structure, Unit A, and 800 square feet of outdoor patio area is in compliance with state requirements and design standards set forth in the SLDC. Hearing officer recommendation. On August 8, 2024, this request was presented to the Sustainable Land Development Hearing Officer. The hearing officer memorialized findings of fact and conclusion of law in a recommended order on this request. The hearing officer, based on the evidence presented, recommended approval of the applicant's CUP be granted. The written order and the minutes of the August 8, 2024 hearing are attached as Exhibits K and L. Recommendation. The recommendation of the hearing officer and staff recommendation is for approval of the conditional use permit to allow a bar or tavern within the existing 2,500 square foot structure, Unit A, and 800 square feet of outdoor patio area, subject to the following conditions. Mr. Chair and Commissioners, may I enter these conditions into the record?
Yes, you may.
The CUP showing the site layout and other conditions that may be imposed through the approval process shall be recorded at the expense of the applicant in the office of the county clerk in accordance with Chapter 4, Section 4.9.6.8. The applicant shall obtain a liquor license. This report and the exhibits are listed below are hereby submitted as part of the hearing record. Thank you, and at this time, I stand for any questions.
Thank you very much, Marie. Do we have any questions of staff? Yes, Wendy?
No. Yes, it'll still be the same.
Any other questions of staff? If not, is the applicant here?
Yes, she is.
Please step forward and get sworn in.
I do. The Kaplan, 218 Walter Street Southeast, Albuquerque, 87.
You have a statement to give us?
I have lived in Madrid, well, I haven't lived the whole time because obviously I live in Albuquerque now, but I've had a presence in Madrid since 1991. So that community is my home. It's more than 30 years. And about 20 years ago, I took over the property on about half of the boardwalk. And I've done nothing but preserve and maintain the historic nature of it because I think that's a very valuable, I don't know, my house in Albuquerque is built in 1880 also. So I just love old things, I guess. But I've preserved this original soda fountain. People come from Albuquerque, absolutely. They'll tell me their story about how they were there when they were children. And I mean, it's a very special place. I definitely think that I would be able to make a better living if people could enjoy having a beer with lunch. And if I could expand to offer dinner, I would like to create an environment that is a little bit different than the tavern. I have an art gallery. I would really like to be able to have cultural style events at that location, and I think having the beer and wine would make a tremendous difference. Right now, most people don't realize that I even offer lunch. They come in for the ice cream and they leave, and then they go to the bar and have a beer. So I would be able to offer sit-down service, and I think it would make a big difference.
Wendy?
Well, I can't even, I mean, all of the paperwork that I have had to do to prepare for this has been probably 20 times what I'll need for that. Basically, I need this in order to even go there. So that is my next step. And we're pretty much ready. We're hoping, you know, knocking on wood, to be able to do something in the spring.
Any other questions? Eric?
Sorry, this is kind of a staff question, but it just for my understanding. There are conditions here that are showing the layout and things like that, and I just want to understand, what is the staff's responsibility, assuming this conditional use permit is granted, to verify that the layout is what the layout is? I'm just trying to understand, if we issue something, are those kind of enforceable conditions that the layout is? Please help me out.
Chair, Commissioner, so yes, there is. It's going to fall back to that joint effort. So she will have to go get her liquor license. The state police will actually go out there and inspect her property to make sure that what she has submitted on her liquor license fits. She has to come back to the county to actually get her liquor license, and we'll have to go in front of BCC to get her liquor license.
Make sure it's not close to a school and stuff like that.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, thanks very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. I've got a couple of questions. You know, you have a gallery, which is 2,500 square feet, and then you have an outdoor area, which is 800 square feet. And where is that in relation to your gallery?
Do we need to have a picture of the plat? So the boardwalk is made up of 4 basic units. It's considered a condominium association. So I have the two southern units. The art gallery is actually in Unit B. And so it's separated by some partitioning walls, I guess, but there are, you know, archways that people can pass through. The soda fountain area itself already has a little old grill work that separates it. And the new seating area already exists with tables that people right now can just go and sit and snack, but it's separated from what I would consider the soda fountain proper, where I want to keep that as a kid-safe zone, you know, so that people that just want to come in for ice cream don't have to be around the alcohol part. But I have in no way any kind of interest in running a bar. That's not my lifestyle at all. So I am interested in people being able to enjoy a glass of wine and maybe enjoy some local beer or whatever when they're looking at art or, you know, on the patio enjoying the music. I don't know if I answered your question.
Are you going to have to reduce the size of your gallery in order to accommodate?
No, this isn't part of the gallery at all. Both of my units combined are like 11,000 square feet. It's a large space. There's a basement, and the basement right now is where I have my personal art studio. It's big. I don't know how to show that to them.
Exhibit J shows a layout or a site plan of what the art gallery and the little restaurant area and soda fountain looks like, plus the outside area. I don't know.
Okay, thank you. Carl?
Mr. Chairman and Mrs. Kaplan?
Yes.
So I look here and it says that the uses for bars, taverns, and nightclubs and tattoo parlors is this overlay district, whatever the acronym here means. Madrid's not a big metropolis place. Where is this concentration or this overlay district that the bars, tattoo parlors, and these are allowed? How far away is it?
I'm not sure what he's talking about.
Commissioner, could you repeat that? I'm not sure the question.
So you're in here for this conditional use permit because you're in an area of the zoning that doesn't allow, and I'll quote here from the code, the MCD TC-based zoning districts that allows bars, taverns, nightclubs, and tattoo parlors within Madrid. And so how far away is that from where your business is?
I am within the overlay district, actually. I am within the conditional use permit area where it is allowed, but I have to request a conditional use permit.
Okay, so Mr. Chairman and staff, so there's an area, if I understand this correctly, there's an area that allows for these types of businesses, but they're not in that area, or they are in this area?
They are not, so it is allowed under the CUP. There are some areas that it's allowed as permissible use. This is not one of them. They have to come through the process, so there's an additional checks and balance to put it where she's wanting to do it. You know, Mandarin Madrid has the Mineshaft Tavern. They went through the same process.
Okay.
Because that's the way that the zoning works out there.
Okay, so that puts it in great perspective, because now there's another place. Obviously, I look at your storefront. You're in the walking district. It's a very commercial area. Other places that have opened and done this have gone through the same process, and it's accepted by the public there. So that's all I needed to know. Thank you.
Any other questions of the applicant? Eric?
Sorry, just nitpicking. So when I looked at the site plan, I saw alcohol-free zone. So you're going to have a lot of signs that say no alcohol beyond this point kind of thing as you walk from here to there? Is that the
Yes.
intention?
Yes, and it's gated. I have signs, I don't know, we have signs,
Yeah.
for
No,
sure.
I just, so that's
Yeah.
one of the things the state police in this liquor license approval process will go through and say, okay, here are the bounds. This is what you applied for. This is what you get. Kids don't get beer with their ice cream. Yeah. So, okay, got it. Thanks.
So
Thank you,
Mr. Ch-
Eric.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
where do I find the conditions? I don't find which exhibit is the conditions of this approval? Exhibit what? Oh, okay, it's just labeled differently. Okay.
Okay, this is a public hearing. Anyone from the public wishing to speak? I don't see anybody in the audience. Anybody online, Jordan?
Chairman, we have one person online, but they're not indicating they wish to speak.
Okay, thank you. We will close the public hearing. What are the wishes of the commission?
Mr. Chairman, I did look at the two conditions, and they're reasonable that staff recommended. So I'm going to make a motion to approve this variance, case 24-5140, with the two conditions stated in the staff's report here, which obviously obtaining a liquor license is probably a good idea if you're going to sell
Thank you,
alcohol.
Carl. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Do we have discussion? If not, those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Commissioners.
Thank you.
Do we have any petitions from the floor? I see no one in the audience. Communications from the commission members? Any communications?
One communication. So it's interesting, I looked up the cannabis law, and I don't know too much about it, but there's a micro grower, because I asked the gentleman 400 plants, and he said, well, that's at the top end. Well, as far as I can understand, maybe you guys can correct me, and maybe you don't know, because I know it's not your department, but a micro license is 200 plants or less. And then once you go to a full grow license, you can grow up to like 16,000 plants, and you pay $5 per plant, and anything above 200. Is that what you understand?
That is completely correct. That's the reason why when it went to hearing officer, she had misstated and called it a microgrow. And then upon further review, it was like, okay, it's 400 plants, that's not a microgrow. And so she went back and actually looked at his license and saw that it was not a microgrow, it was a commercial grow. And so that's when on this report it changed to a commercial grow, because 200 or less is micro, anything over 200 is considered a commercial grow. And like you said, they pay yearly on how many plants they want to produce.
But there, if that gentleman decided I'm going to go from 400 to 10,000, he doesn't have to come back to the
Yes, he
town,
does.
he?
Your CUP only approved, he was only approved for 400 plants. So if he decided he wanted to grow 600 the next year, he has to come in and modify his CUP.
Okay. So even though he gets the license from the state of New Mexico that says you can do that, he has to come back to the county. Got
Yes.
it. Okay. Yeah. Well, I'm just trying to understand the dynamic here. Thank you for that, Ms. Valdez.
Do we have communications from the attorney? Roger?
Nothing to add tonight. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Matters from the land use staff?
Yes, Chairman, I only have one. Mark your calendars, February 5th is the preliminary date for the special planning commission meeting for AES. That will be, I'm sorry, what? February 5th, yes. And so we are, that is a tentative date right now. Unless they just don't give us the information required, it will not move. It'll be at the community college. And we will probably try to start a little bit earlier, so we're not here till midnight with it. But right now, February 5th is the date for that hearing.
Oh, gosh, out of time.
Thank you. Thank you for the good news there, whatever.
You will actually get the information to you far in advance. We actually gave over a month. We gave about 45 days between hearing officer and the planning commission. So it's going to hearing officer on December the 5th, and then it comes to planning commission on February 5th, so we can get you all the information to review. Currently, their actual application is online. It's on the webpage. It's all been uploaded, so it is online if y'all want to start reviewing their application stuff.
And what's the expected start time?
I'm hoping for 3 o'clock. I would like to go earlier, but it's going to depend on what the attorney does, what the attorney allows me to go. I mean, we had a request from hearing officer to start in the morning, but I don't think that the attorney's going to let me do that.
And our next regularly scheduled planning commission meeting is October 17th, 2024, so. And can we have a motion to adjourn? Thank you. Thank you, Carl.